Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Mr. Jack, which is designed by Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Maublanc, I think that's pronounced correctly, and published by Hurrican. This is a two-player only game. They say it takes about 30 minutes, that's probably close to right, and then ages 9+, that's probably also about right. I mean, it's a fairly simple game overall. Not rules heavy. Now, this is a game that I know, on the Dice Tower, Z Garcia really likes this game. Tom Vassell does not like it very much, so at least from what I've heard. And whenever I got this, I really mainly got it because I wanted me and my wife to have a kind of a social, not social deduction because it's only 2 players, but I guess a cat and mouse type hidden role game where there's some deduction going on. I wanted to have one of those for us, and this one popped up as a good option. And even though I know that Tom doesn't like it, and normally my taste goes more in line with Tom, some exceptions, and Z, I'm not usually in agreement with him, but I thought I would take a chance on this one. So let's go to the table, I'll tell you how to play, then we'll come up and I will tell you if I made a good decision or not. So here's the setup. You have all the characters and the lampposts, the manhole covers, and the police cordons in this exact layout. So every game, Watson will be over here, Inspector Lestrade will be here, Sherlock Holmes will be here, etc. And that's the way it's always going to be. Now, you'll have a little token down here that shows what turn you're on, what round you're on, and Mr. Jack is seen at the beginning. That could change later, and he could be unseen at some point, but for now, he starts off seen. Now, the player who's playing Mr. Jack, they're going to take secretly the top tile from the alibi stack, which now, this is his character. Basically, Mr. Jack is impersonating one of the characters. This is who he's impersonating, so no one knows who he really is except for himself. So he's going to keep this. We now know that Mr. Jack is pretending to be Jeremy Burt. Now, the rest of these are evidence cards, which you'll see how they turn up, what their use is later. Now, the green tiles are used for the actual moving around and all that good stuff of playing the game. So what's going to happen is, you'll notice here that there's this little yellow, gray, yellow. What that means is the yellow side is for the good guy. The gray side, I don't know if you notice this border, but but the yellow border, that's where the good guy sits. The bad guy sits around the gray border. The gray border means that you're Mr. Jack. So here, this tells you that the good guy is going to get to go once, then the bad guy is going to go 2 times, and then the good guy is going to go last. And that alternates as you go along, because it's going to be bad guy once, then good guy twice, then bad guy last. And it's going to, each time that's going to change. At the same time, lampposts are going to start going out. Number 1, number 2, then number 3, then number 4. So in the first 4 rounds, certain lampposts will disappear, which will make it to where there's less light and it's harder to keep Mr. Jack seen. And that's important. Why? Because Mr. Jack is trying to escape. Ideally, he wants to try to rush through one of these exits in the corners as quickly as possible, but he can't do it when he's seen. So if at the end of a round he's seen, he cannot leave. So he wants to be unseen, that way the next round he can try to escape. Now, basically, here's the way it's going to work. At the beginning of a turn, you're going to turn over the top 4 character tiles. In this case, we draw John Smith, who does the lampposts. We have Jeremy Burt, which as the bad guy knows, and we know, the bad guy's Jeremy Burt, so he's like, ooh, that's me. Then we have Watson, and then we have Sherlock Holmes. Now, each character has a special ability, which is detailed at the bottom, and we'll deal with that in a second. But as I said, the good guy's going to go first. The bad guy's going to go twice, then the good guy's going to go last. So what's going to happen is, you're going to look at this, and the good guy's going to choose one of these 4 characters. Who should he use and move? Now, the goal is, from the good guy's perspective, is either to keep the bad guy, seen, which means being next to a lamppost so there's light so people can see him, or make sure there's someone next to somebody else. So let's say Sherlock Holmes was down here If Inspector Lestrade was next to him, then they're both seen, which means that he would be seen if he's one of them. So that's the real key goal that the good guy's trying to do. Keep the bad guy seen so he cannot escape, or eliminate through process of elimination. And the best way to do this is to keep a balance of 50-50. If you can make it to where half the people are seen and half of them are unseen, what's going to happen is at the end of every round, Mr. Jack has to say if he's seen or unseen. So let's just pretend like this was the end of a round and they were right here. I mean, obviously this is the initial setup, but don't worry about that. Pretending that this was the end of a round, Jeremy Burt is Mr. Jack. So Mr. Jack would have to say, since he's next to a lamppost, oh, I'm seen at the end of a round. The good guy now knows, oh, he couldn't be Sergeant Goodley. He couldn't be Mrs. Stealthily. He couldn't be the doctor. And he can't be Watson because none of them are seen. So right off the bat, the good guy learned a lot of information. And what you do, the good guy will flip these over to the basically black and white side to show, I know they're innocent. I know she's innocent. I know the doctor is innocent. And I know the sergeant is innocent. So you can end up using this as the good guy uses this method of trying to have that half and half to quickly eliminate who the bad guy could be. So at this point, it's one of these four. The bad guy, the bad guy's getting kind of in scary territory. So the interesting part is the bad guy is trying to keep himself in whatever the most characters are. If most of them are revealed or are going to be seen, he wants to also be seen. Because if he was ever unlucky enough to be the only person seen or not seen, then it'll be obvious that he is the bad guy. Because in this particular case, if the round ended now, he'd have to say, well, I'm not seen, but these three are seen, so that couldn't be them. So at this point, the good guy would know that is Mr. Jack. Now, that doesn't end the game. Knowing that is not the end-all be-all, because at this point, Jack still has a chance to escape, and the good guy has to actually move onto and accuse and capture him. Now, if at any point the good guy thinks he knows, let's say he's, limited it down to these, and based upon the movements, he goes, you know what, I really think it's, Sergeant Lestrade, and let's say he's over here, and you move on and accuse him. If you're wrong, Mr. Jack wins. So you only get one chance to make such an accusation. So you have to make sure that you really have your ducks in a row and know what you're doing. Or if you're confident, let's say Mr. Jack's let's say you're sure that's Mr. Jack, and you know I'm fixing to run away and leave, or you think so. I could be moving him to make you think that I'm trying to get away, but you might do it at the last second hoping that that's the case, but I could be trying to trick you. Now, I don't know where they all started, but it doesn't matter. The point is, the good guy is trying to do this process of elimination to figure out the best they can who the bad guy is. Now, the bad guy can also win if he survives all 8 turns and has not been caught. He can win that way as well. But in this case, with this guy moving around, you might move over here, get close. Well, you notice these police cordons, they are blocking a path, so you can't leave in those spots, and that's important, but they move. And now we'll go over what each of the characters' abilities are so you can see all the different possibilities and why the characters are so unique and interesting. And this is really a lot of what makes the game really exciting, is the fact that you have Sir William Gull. Oh, I called him the Doctor. I think he is a doctor, but Sir William Gull, he can move 1 to 3 spaces, or he can swap places with somebody else. So you can quickly move. Let's say the good guy, let's say I'm playing Mr. Jack, and I've moved this guy all the way over here, and the good guy thinks, oh, that's got to be Jack. He can just go away. If he ever gets the chance to choose to move this person, he can make him switch places with somebody else and get him closer to the middle and not so close to winning. Now, I should probably, before I say anything else, make it 100% clear how this worked. I don't know if I made this totally clear. After you turn up the top 4, you'll take turns, like I said. In the first round, the good guy would choose someone. Let's say he chose Jeremy Burt. Let's say he chooses Jeremy Burt, and he says, you know what, I want to move him 1, 2, 3 spaces. After he does that, he has to use his ability, which is to move a manhole cover. And that's important because you can basically teleport through manholes. And like, for example, but we'll deal with that later. But he does that. Now the good guy the bad guy now gets to go twice. So he can say, well, I want to use Watson because Watson has this beam. He can move 1 to 3 spaces, and whichever way he's facing that with his lamp, which you'll notice Watson has this arrow to show you. Whenever you move Watson, whatever, let's say you go 1, 2, 3, anyone in that line, apart from obstacles will block that line of sight, but anyone in a clear line of sight will be seen. So that means that now our good friend John Smith is seen, even if there wasn't a lamp there. So that's really powerful, especially that's actually powerful for either one, because you know, controlling who is seen and unseen, both sides want to be able to do that. But then the bad guy might use Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes can move 1 to 3 spaces, and then he gets to look at an alibi card. So Sherlock Holmes, as always, is great at getting evidence. So now he draws the top tile and goes, aha, I know that the good doctor is innocent. He's actually good. So he'll keep this secretly so that the bad guy doesn't know what he's learned. So he's not just going to flip this guy over and say, oh, I know he's innocent. No, no, no. You want to keep that a secret. You don't want the bad guy to know that you know this. So then finally, well, I'm sorry. I should have said, since the bad guy was doing this, that's what the good guy would have been able to do. The bad guy would keep this tile for himself and take this away so that the good guy can never learn this. So Sherlock Holmes, if you're the bad guy, you're using this to take more information away that the good guy can never learn. If you're the good guy, you want to do this so that you can learn, aha, this is someone that the bad guy is not. In this case, the bad guy used Sherlock Holmes, so he just keeps this and goes, aha, you're never going to learn that piece of information. Then the good guy will be left with John Smith, which can move 1 to 3 spaces, and he has to move a lamppost at the end, or at the beginning or the end of his turn. So he might say, oh, I'll go 1, 2, 3. I want to move this lamppost up here to keep myself lit up. So basically, each character, as you can see, has really powerful abilities that keep things very scary, honestly, for all sides. You want to be able to use all the abilities, but you have to choose, and sometimes choosing leaves you with your opponent getting to do things that you really don't want them to get to do. After you've done those 4, then you'll draw the next 4, and you'll move this token up. Now the bad guy's going to go first, the good guy's going to go twice. We'll go through these again. So Sir William Gull can swap places. So let's say the bad guy wants to use Sir William Gull. He won't use Lestrade, Miss Stealthy, or Sergeant Goodley. He'll use Sir William Gull, and he'll go, aha, I'm going to swap places over here in the hopes of making the good guy think that this is me. So move that out of the way. Then the good guy might go, ooh, I'll use Sergeant Goodley. He can move 1 to 3 spaces, and he can make he basically gets 3 movement points from blowing his whistle to make people come closer to him. So Sergeant Goodley, let's say you go 1, 2, 3, and then you go, I'm going to make you move 1, 2, 3, get you closer to me and get farther away from the exit. But you could also split it up. I could make him move 1, I could make him move 1, and I could make him move 1 closer to me. So you can split it up however you want, but a total of 3 movement points of people moving closer to Sergeant Goodley is what happens, and they cannot go through manhole covers. Now, let's just say, let's keep going, and I'll show you this. So the bad guy used Sergeant Goodley. Then he might say, I'm going to use Miss Stealthy. She can actually move up to 4 spaces, and she's allowed to move through obstacles. That's very powerful. So Miss Stealthy might go 1. She goes on this empty, this open manhole cover, 1, and then she can go 2 to skip over here, and then she can go 3, 4. She can move through obstacles, and anyone can teleport through manhole covers that way as long as they're open. And just as a reminder, Jeremy Burt is the one that can move manhole covers. So basically the manhole covers will be moving around, so different things will be blocked, and whenever Inspector Lestrade gets used now by the... I think I've been getting mixed up on who is the good guy and the bad guy, but you get the point, which is that now Inspector Lestrade will be used by the bad guy. He gets to move 1 to 3 spaces, so he might go 1, 2, 3 over here trying to catch her in case she is actually trying to sneak through here, but he has to move a police cordon whenever he does this, so now he has to decide which one to move. Well, if this is the bad guy, don't want to move that one, and I'm still a little worried that it might be the doctor, so let's move this over here and block this path. So now these 2 are open, and you continue going. And now at this point, since you've gone through all 8 characters, you would shuffle them all and get ready to do it all over again. So, and then you would deal another, you'd move this up, and of course I forgot to clear out 1, and now we would get rid of lamp 2. Those would be gone by now. And then we would deal 4, and the good guy would go first, the bad guy would go twice, and then the good guy would go last again. And then at the end of that round, we would lose lamp number 3, and you keep going along until, like I say, either the bad guy escapes, the good guy catches him, actually lands on him and accuses him correctly, or if he's incorrect, then that would make the bad guy also win. Or the bad guy survives all the way to the last turn, to the end of the last turn, in which case he wins. So all the characters have their special abilities that make it to where everyone wants to use them. Everyone wants to be able to use these special abilities for the most part, because almost in every case they're very, very powerful. But misdirection is, of course, the key for being Mr. Jack. You want to make it to where certain people seem guilty when they're not, but ultimately you want to try to not be seen at a point whenever you're getting close to the exit. So you can go 1, 2, 3, aha, I win! But easier said than done, to put it lightly. But that's how you play the game. Let's go ahead and go back up, and I will tell you what I think. Okay, so Mr. Jack is actually a pretty good game. Now, let me tell you, component quality-wise, what is it that we got here? We have, you know, not my favorite, you have little wooden tokens that, these wooden tokens, you have to put stickers on them, and I usually don't like having to do that. But it's not bad, and the artwork is nice, so even though I have to put stickers on them and it's just a little wooden disc, I can live with that since it looks appealing once it's all on there, and I can't really complain too much about it. It's just not my favorite. That's maybe something that other people really like, so it's very subjective. The board, the artwork on the board, I think is okay. I don't think it's great. It's very plain, I guess. Maybe it's supposed to be stylized a certain way to get some feeling across. Me personally, it's functional only. I don't really get anything out of the artwork on the board. So overall, component quality I think is okay. It'll get the job done. And now as far, and I guess I should say that the tiles are pretty thick and sturdy. I mean, I can't complain there. I mean, they're really nice. They're not flimsy at all. So there is one really good point. As far as the replayability, I think there's a decent amount of replayability from the base game because, you know, even though the setup is always the same, the fact that you don't know who the bad guy is, if you're the bad guy, you know who you are and you're trying to hide that, the way the game plays and the unique powers and the fact that as the characters turn up and you're choosing who to move, and since you always alternate, you know, one person does an action, then someone else does 2 actions, and the other person does the last action. It really, and you don't know who's coming up, and sometimes that makes a big difference. Sometimes who you need to move pops up on the other whenever the other person gets to choose first, and they might use that person not even necessarily trying to mess you up, or maybe they think they need to, and it can really mess up your game. So the randomness of how the characters come up, and then the randomness of who you are, it adds a good bit of replayability, in my opinion. And strategically, there's a lot of strategy here because you're trying, as the bad guy, you're trying to think, how can I keep myself as hidden as possible, reveal as little information to the investigator as possible? And sometimes that's a lot easier said than done. I mean, you might make some moves and think, ooh, I'm hidden and most everybody is not seen, which means that the investigator will get very little information and I will be set up to possibly escape. But the good guy might end up pulling a move that you didn't see coming, and like with Watson, he might move over there and maybe didn't realize that he'd be able to light up so much. Or maybe a lamppost will move that will suddenly reveal things that you forgot that would be revealed, or lots of different things could happen. And or maybe a police cordon will be moved by Lestrade that will block the path that you were planning on escaping through. I mean, there's so much stuff that can happen. It blows my mind, really, because there are times whenever I'm playing this and I think, wow, I'm doing really good, and then a power move comes in that just ruins my plans. So the good guy has a lot to go on, too. I mean, trying to use Sherlock Holmes to eliminate the people so he knows more information of who the bad guy might be, and trying to manipulate the manhole covers and the police cordons to minimize the options that the bad guy might have for escaping. There's so much going on here, and I really like the strategic level because I feel like there's always good options even when the tiles don't necessarily turn up the way you want them to. Now, as far as my rating, I would definitely give this an 8 out of 10, hands down. I mean, I recommend this game as a great two-player game. I agree with Z Garcia big time on this because, you know, he talks about it being basically the only two-player deduction game like this. And I don't know if that's 100% true, but I mean, I don't know of any other ones. And this one does a good job where you're trying to figure out, you know, based on their movements, are they trying to trick you? Are they trying to make you think that this is the character they need the investigator needs to go after? Are they using reverse psychology, or are they really just trying to win? And what's the best way to, you know, should I use Sherlock Holmes right now to get a tile and maybe get some more information, or should I use someone else to, you know, maybe use Mrs. Stealthy to cruise along and try to keep someone lit up? I mean, all those tough choices, and it always feels like a very tense game for both sides, at least every time that we've played. Me and my wife both enjoy this one a good bit because it's just tense. It's very tense every game because no one knows that much unless you get really lucky, and sometimes that can happen. If you make a bad mistake, yeah, a lot of information could be given to the investigator all at once, and that puts the bad guy in really bad shape. That is possible. That can happen. But generally speaking, if you're paying, but that's a good thing in my opinion. It really promotes you to really try to pay attention and do a good job. The better players will win in this game for the most in general, just because if you pay attention to where the pieces are and how you can manipulate the board to your advantage, you can make things very hard for your opponent. So definitely a recommendation from me. 8 out of 10. Really enjoy it. Glad I got it. So, you know, I don't know why Tom doesn't like it. I really don't understand what the problem is, but yeah, I disagree with him on this one. So I took a chance and it worked out for me, and I hope it will work out for you if you're interested. If you have any questions or comments, I'd appreciate it if you leave them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And in the meantime, I appreciate you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you want to see more. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.